Hello, everybody, and welcome to Music Industry Insights Worldwide. Today, we have the awesome Carmen with us. Hi, Carmen, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Saskia. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to chat
Oh,
with you today.
likewise. And thank you ever so much for coming along today, speaking with us, sharing your story, your views, and your expertise. Very much appreciate it. Do you want to tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself, where you're from, and what you do?
Sure, sure. I'm born and raised in San Francisco in California. First generation San Franciscan is what I usually say.
Yeah.
And yeah, lived here my whole life, but been very fortunate to, be able to travel around the world and have incredible experiences, due largely to music and my passion for food and travel.
Yeah.
I do a lot of different things. But I've been in music in one way, shape, or another since a teenager, really.
Um,
But right now, it's more on the activist, musician, creator, writer side.
that's great. And have you had an education when you got into that, or how did you get into that in the first place?
Oh, wow. That's a really great question. I think it's really about interpretation. And I interpret that as I've been in music my entire life. I grew up in a Latin family
Lovely.
and raised with music. I mean, that's all I knew
Yeah.
from the day I was born, from, listening to everything from mariachi music to merengues to boleros. I didn't really have the traditional uh, musical experiences because of my culture, right?
Yeah.
It was different. And, I grew up admiring and listening to composers
Mhm.
that no one else knew, right? Like we're talking Armando Manzanero is one of my favorites. And I grew up listening to artists like Pedro Infante, Vicente Fernandez, Celia Cruz,
Oh,
Alberto Vasquez, Ricky Carr,
yes.
right
Oh,
up to
yeah.
Herb Albert.
Yeah.
So yeah, I grew up with music as a part of my culture,
Yeah.
and it was really for me just the transition was everything that I did was around or surrounded by music. I remember actually in fourth grade, so
Yeah.
9 years old roughly, you know, there's always those stories, right? When you're different than other kids.
You know that word? I know that very.
Right? And there's different variations of different.
Yeah.
And in your heart when someone is coming at you with certain energy.
Right.
So
Right.
I mean, there's a big difference
Mhm.
when someone says, "Oh, where are you from?"
Yes,
versus
I get
"Where
that.
are you
I
from?"
get that too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Right?
totally understand.
And so yeah, it was just one of those things where it was early on. So where are you from? Or what do who are you? Like that sort of thing. And I
Just
remember at 9 years old, I knew what they were asking me.
yeah,
I couldn't articulate it necessarily. I didn't have the words discrimination or racism, especially because, Spanish was my first language.
right. Okay, yeah.
There it took me a while. I do have to thank all my teachers from kindergarten through
Oh, bless
fifth
you.
grade,
Honestly, yeah, awesome.
right?
Awesome.
But my response to that was, well, I'm an artist.
Yes.
And I never identified as, oh, I'm Latina, Hispanic, I'm a girl, I'm this age. I never went into, I was like, oh, I'm an artist.
Yeah.
That used to confuse that child or those people because it
With
wasn't always children,
yeah,
but it would confuse them. And
yeah.
it stopped that line of questioning. And so I learned early on, I'm like, that's my answer. I'm an
Well,
artist.
well done. I love to hear that too. And obviously, you've done this for a very, very long time. You're a
I
woman,
have.
and you're also from an underrepresented group. How have you found that and navigating your career in an industry that's very male dominated? That must have been
Yes. I've been in several careers that have all been male dominated, and I have to say, I think that The first thing is you have to, in my opinion, and as a coach,
Yeah.
uh, you've got to know who you are.
Yes. Yeah.
And you've got to understand yourself, your core beliefs, your core, everything that you believe about yourself.
Mhm.
I hope
Yeah.
that you are able to focus on this is who I am. No one is going to diminish that. I will not allow anyone to diminish that. And I'm standing with that core of who I am.
Really hard.
You know that I know that that's not always easy,
Yeah.
right? And we need to build support systems. We need to find people who also appreciate and love us and accept us in that way. And as far as career-wise, once you have that,
Mhm.
and this is oversimplifying, right? This is the end result that I would wish for every woman,
Go
every
on. Yeah.
right, every human being, and we all have different paths and journeys to get there. But once you have that,
Mhm.
or if you're continuously striving to maintain that,
Yeah.
then I feel like we have a couple of choices. We can turn and go away like they want us to,
Yeah.
or we can wait. Well, I guess there's more than different options here. Or we can wait to be invited,
Yeah.
which in most cases, that invitation is never going to come.
Right. Right.
Or we can build our own table. We can do our own thing, which I highly recommend, which is what I've done the majority of my time. But the caveat then is remembering to have a plan. You've
Yeah.
built your own community or you've built your own company,
Right.
you've built your own career,
Yeah.
and depending on your individual goals,
Mhm.
then you've got to figure out now that I built this, how do I integrate?
Yeah.
Because and the reason I say that is because it's beautiful to have your own world and we're all operating in all these different silos, but
Mhm.
that still means that we're fractionated,
Yes.
that we're not part of mainstream.
Yeah.
So the other option that I have also incorporated in my life is I don't wait for the invitation. I pull up the chair and I sit at that table
Good on you. And
like
that's
you belong.
and that's how it should be, right?
That's how it should be.
It should be.
And you would think that it would be, but we know, you and I both know that isn't the case.
Yeah.
But I think if you have that knowledge and that core belief in yourself, you can get invited. I've been invited to some of the tables that a lot of other women and other women who look like me have not been invited to. But don't forget to bring others along with you. It
100%.
doesn't, right? It doesn't do any good to not help someone else, in my opinion.
Yeah, you physically can't do it by yourself. And another thing that I'm really getting from you is that authenticity. You know, you've got a story, you're seeing through things for a certain lens, but that authenticity shines through. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about how important that's been on your journey?
It's everything, actually. I think, like as I mentioned earlier, self-identifying, self-labeling myself as an artist. In my mind, as a young person, artist doesn't have a genre, doesn't have an age, doesn't have a gender, doesn't have skin color.
Right.
So imagine a world where children were taught to look at themselves at, if someone wants to be a doctor
Mhm.
at 8, 9, 10, 12, to say, I'm a doctor. I heal. I'm a healer,
Yeah,
or I'm going to be an astronaut. I'm going to be an explorer. I am an explorer. It's very different than all the labels that the world tries to put on you, because those labels, in my opinion, again, those labels are then used to segregate, to separate, to divide, to conquer.
100%. I totally agree. And this is a problem that I find is I'm a trans woman and I'm multiracial, but a lot of people want to put me in a box. I don't belong in any box and I don't want any special treatment. I just want to be treated for what I bring to the table and my special talents. And I think
Right.
that's something I'm really getting from America at the moment is it should be talent based. It shouldn't always be about who you are or what you are. But at the end of the day, what do you bring to the table and what problem are you solving? So I'm sure you've come to an industry, Carmen, and you've done this for a while. Did you have to find a problem and then solve it?
That's a really great question. I think that's what we're do that in this phase of my life at this point, because, again, being a woman of color, and now crossing that threshold over 50,
Right.
way over
You did
50,
it. You
it's
said
a whole different ballgame. So, I think for me, what's beautiful about going through all the challenges in life. I mean, I'm going to circle back to this point, but I also wanted to say, I think that one thing that we cannot allow ourselves to forget as artists, as writers, as performers, as entertainers is there are a few what I call the golden threads
yeah.
that unite us all. And that is, music is one. So we'll focus on this. And if it wasn't for that thread of music throughout my life, guiding my career choices, the
Mhm.
way that I walk in the world, the way that I present myself, the way that I express myself,
Mhm.
I started early on journaling, writing, all that poems, all that turned into songs.
Yeah.
And then full circle, going back to all those journals, all those songs and all those small poems, and those are turning into the writings,
Awesome.
right? The
Yeah.
book, the thing that's coming, whatever's next. But my point being is that thread is what has allowed me to travel the world, find and meet incredible people like yourself. I mean, I know I'm not there in the UK right now, but through technology, we are here. We are,
Yeah.
chopping it up. We're talking, we're getting to know one another. And the commonality of that is music.
Yeah.
It has brought joy. It has brought me relationships like this that we're developing now. I've had adventures and experiences that are uniquely my own.
So cool.
And in the wake of, because I don't want to sound like, Pollyanna,
You're not.
um,
You're
because
not.
it's right. I mean, we all have tragedy, betrayal.
Yeah.
We have
Trauma.
bullying in one way or another. We have discrimination that we've had to deal with. We've had grief. We've had loss. But I do find that music, the expression through music, it allows us to see what we have in common, to join our hearts and our spirits together. And to answer the question again, to circle back to that, is that that golden thread throughout my life is where I'm at right now. I have, in my opinion, I do have an answer to a problem that I believe that we are going to be solving. Thank you. And that problem is unfortunately here in this day and age in the United States, and I'm mortified
Mhm.
on because of some of the things that are happening. Oh gosh.
I know. I'm sorry as well because I feel
It's
it.
okay.
Got family
It's,
from America and everything, so I really feel that as well.
the dehumanization of so many of our marginalized groups.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like in the history here in our country was our voices were never represented in the history books.
Yeah. Oh, don't you're gonna bring me cry a little bit. I was so sad. Carry on.
Um,
Sorry.
it is heartbreaking. It is a reason to get emotional,
Mhm.
um, because they're trying to do it again.
Right.
And if we allow this to happen, then it's also we're part of it. So my solution is that what we're building for the world, for the music community, for artists, for
For the
every
for the future as well.
for the
Yeah.
future, yes, for our young people, we're doing this project under my nonprofit. So again, I had a nonprofit
Oh, well
from
done.
2000. what was it, 2005 to 2018 for 13 years, children's music
Oh,
nonprofit.
lovely.
Um, and I thought I was retired. I was done at 2018, but when there are such incredibly painful circumstances that you see that we're witnessing for me that
That's
I've been witnessing that's bubbling up through this and it's just this ugliness. um, we have a choice. We can sit back and do nothing. I'm retired, hands off, not my problem. They'll figure it out. Or we can create.
make a better world for
And
everybody.
right. And we can do it in the way that we know how.
Yeah,
And for me, it's music, it's expression, it's writing, it's using technology to amplify all of our voices. And that's what we're building through the nonprofit. So I had to start another nonprofit.
yeah,
And the project is called the Indigenous and World Music Hall of Fame. And it is in the metaverse. It's going to allow us to tell our stories, whoever you are. We can't do it all at once for everyone. We've got to start small and build, but the goal is it's a world organization to amplify everyone's stories in their own words,
great. I love that.
in their own voice
Authentic.
through music and
Yeah,
culture and all of that and expression. And that's what I'm trying to build for our younger generation to have a place to say this is where our truths are.
yes.
We're not going to be eliminated and
No,
forgotten
certainly
and
not. We're,
erased.
we're all the one in the same at the end of the day, right?
Exactly. We cannot allow ourselves to be erased
No.
from history
Mm.
again.
No, no, I totally agree with you on that. And also, a lot of my musical passions stemmed from a child, actually. And because I was born to two deaf parents, and my music teacher, she was awesome and helped me back into music. And it was kind of a healing process and a way I could communicate with other people without having to, be misunderstood. How important is that in the USA right now with music education, support, and also not everyone's academic. We have creatives too. How can we combine them to make sure that we keep the talent that we have?
I don't have the answer to that. I do believe, and I've given this example on stages and different presentations and I'm speaking engagements that I've been invited to, and I invite people to look at this in this way. And you probably are familiar in not in my case because my mother was incredibly different
Mhm.
in such an amazing, unique way in that she supported every creative
Oh,
hair on my
God
head.
bless her too.
And I realize that not everyone has that, particularly in the Latino culture. Most children are usually discouraged and dissuaded from being artists, musicians, painters, sculptors, writers. And there's a reason for it.
Mhm.
There is a logical reason for it. It's the pain, it's the suffering that our previous generations had to experience, right? And many, I would say most Latino Hispanic children are told, oh, you need to be a doctor, you need to be an attorney, you need to be a CPA, go be a nurse, but
Do
don't
music.
be an artist. Don't do music, right? That no one wants, you're going to starve. There's nothing to, well, if you really think about it though, in the last 20, 30, 50 years, where have all the greatest innovations come from? From creative people.
That's right. That's so
And
true.
maybe not necessarily musicians, but creatives
We're all
have,
the same. Yeah, like in the creative sphere, I think, we all create something. We're all bringing something to the table, all trying to make a difference, but we're doing it through a lens that we see and what we've been through, and
as,
how is it,
as it should be.
yeah, right. And how have you found that and incorporated into your work and what you bring out at the moment?
It's the only way I know how to create
Same here.
something.
Same here, right?
I don't know any other way but my experiences and where my heart leads me and my core beliefs, again, of who I am and what I believe. I want to share that with those who want to receive it. I think the other beautiful side of being an artist and being a creative person is that early on,
Yeah,
when you put yourself out there on a stage, for example, you know that not everyone is going to appreciate
right.
what you've created, the song you wrote, the message that you have, the painting that you painted. You know that. And I think that when you are a child and you experience that, because you will get criticized, you will get bullied, but you still continue on. You realize that you're not doing it just for yourself, which is part of healing, like you said,
Yeah.
100%, I believe. Even if it's one person in the audience that loves your song,
And
but
the,
you
the
connected.
right, just that one person's enough for
And,
me.
and
It's just,
exactly. So when you've got two or 10 or 20 or 1,000,
yeah.
and I'll also say it's not always your relatives and your family or your friends.
They can sometimes criticize you the most, which
Yeah.
happened to me several times. And I think, the further you go down that path, it's sometimes you really realize who's there for you and who isn't. I'm trying to connect with people because sometimes, I'm trying to make a community and I'm trying to represent, but I'm also trying to help other people understand at the same time. So it's like empowerment, education, and inspiration, which can be a lot, right?
I love it, but you're so good at it. What you're doing is so critical and it's so important and courageous.
I feel down
I
sometimes though.
thank you.
It gets me down. Thank you. And sometimes I feel like, am I doing enough? Is it good enough? Am I bringing enough to the table? Am I doing enough? Have you ever
Okay, you're going to stop that. I'm going to tell you right now, you've got to stop that.
felt,
There's enough people out there questioning it.
yeah.
You don't need to be one of them.
Oh,
You are doing enough and you're doing more than enough.
thank
And again, if one person watches this
yes.
conversation that you and I are having, that is a job well done. So
Oh,
well done.
oh, thank you, Carmen. And do you know what another thing is I find is it's really important to represent, but how do you feel equality, diversity, inclusion is at the moment, especially coming from an underrepresented group?
I think as here, this is my only experience
Oh,
in the United States. I think we have to remember that when people are, let's go back to childhood, when kids are bullying another child because that child is different,
yeah.
when when they're doing that, it's because they don't understand. They have been taught to hate. I
Yes.
do not believe that children are born into this world hating.
No, they
I
don't.
believe that they are taught to do that. They're taught to be judgmental. They're taught um, to hurt others
Mm,
in order to feel better. And all of that is, in my opinion, coming from a place of fear,
yeah.
fear of
100%.
being replaced, fear of their things, whatever it is that they value, being taken away from them.
Yeah.
Uh, it, I, I really don't know what else to do other than to continue to do the work that I do based on compassion and empathy.
100%.
But I will say this, I think it can be a painful uphill battle when the people who are your leaders, the leaders of your country now,
Hmm.
when they are incapable and or unwilling
Yeah.
to be compassionate and
Exactly.
empathetic, it is a battle.
That's how I feel right now. Even in
We
the UK, you think it's any different from the US? It's really not. It's really, really not. And everyone's like, oh, the UK's doing really good. It's not. It's actually really not. It's sad to see. We don't support talent. We're not seeing the right people in the right places. And I really want to see that change because, I look at equity, diversity, inclusion, and a lot of them are saying they do something. They're just ticking a box, but they're not having that meaningful action. They're not making any difference, at all.
I, there's so many companies and corporations here in the US that are rolling it back.
Mhm.
And again, it's out of fear. They're being threatened with whatever it is they think, you know, is going to be taken from them or
Yeah,
has been taken from them. But, again, we have to have a very clear understanding of these jobs that they say that immigrants are taking from. They don't want those jobs here in the US.
I'm the same in the UK too. The same here too.
Right. I mean, if that were the case, then they should be able to recruit
Mhm.
college kids to go and pick the strawberries and the artichokes and the lettuce.
Wow.
They shouldn't have a problem replacing those people, right?
Mhm.
But I do think there is the ability through music and education and writing and conversations like this
Yeah,
that perhaps someone might change their mind.
I hope so. That's what I always think as well. And it can be a challenge. But how do you think, it's going at the moment? And what would you like to see improve in the next couple of years? Because I think it's something that, we talk about a lot and there's a lot of tick box exercises, but I've been doing this for a long time. I've not got any funding. I've not got any support. I've not got any help. I've applied so many different times. That's not made a difference. And I don't really want to use tags or labels because that's not really what I'm about. I'm just a human being, but I bring talent to the table, right? And I'm quite different, but I don't get appreciated for that. And sometimes I feel I'm disrespected or misunderstood, and that can be really challenging, like you said.
I I don't know that that's going to change anytime soon.
Right.
I think we have to hold on to our courage
Hmm.
and continue to do what we do in the way that we're able to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna repeat what I said earlier. It is enough. It's all we can do sometimes.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Yeah.
all we can do is focus on our little corner of the world sometimes. If we're lucky enough, like with building this metaverse world
Mhm.
where people will be able to come in and join and be a part of it and participate, because again, this is for artists.
Awesome. The avatars as well, because that's the avatar world as well, isn't it? Tell us
Exactly.
more about
Exactly.
metaverse, because I know about that, but some of the listeners might not. So let's tell everyone what's the metaverse and what does it mean?
Well, it is, and this is the ironic part is that I am zero tech person,
I,
but I,
but I know about it.
um, but to be honest, I'm going to go back to when I was 14 years old, and I always imagined that there must be a place somewhere
Mhm.
we could all, at that time, I was already writing, I was already uh, creating poems and expressing those desires. Thank you. And
Mm.
I have to say, I do have to credit all of my teachers from kindergarten through fifth grade, but one in particular, and I think you'll love this story as much as I love it. But my second grade teacher, so second grade was the first year where I was now fluent in English.
Okay. Yeah.
In, kindergarten and first grade,
A little.
I was struggling, still
Yeah.
needed, and I had incredible teachers that were tutoring me on their own time during their lunch. They
Yeah.
were helping me.
That's what
I
I did
am,
with music. That was how I did
yeah,
music too, actually.
right, right.
In my break
And
time.
oh, that's so lovely. And my second grade teacher was actually British. Her
Yeah.
name was Mrs. Swanee. She came from London. She was a former actress. And she is the one that not just read stories to us after lunch, we're second grade, you're tired. We
Mhm.
would have nap time, but she would read to us.
I remember
And
this.
she would read the most incredible stories, Alice in Wonderland, Alice Through the Looking Glass, Runaway Ralph. I mean, you name it. But because she was an actress, she was all of those characters. She became all of those characters, and she would sing. She would make up her own parts of the story. And I was fascinated. So while all the other kids were napping, I was just
Wide
like this.
awake.
I
Yeah,
was
I
just,
was like that as well. I used to love it.
oh,
You're like in another world.
yes. Yes. And it was the power of words.
Yes.
This is where I learned in second grade the power of expression, the power of words. And I wanted to take command of my new language.
Good on
I don't
you.
know if that makes sense, but I knew that
Yeah.
for me, that was my toolkit. That was my road to expression, to freedom. And then as I got older, it became more and more apparent. And that led me to, I want to create these worlds like in these books.
Good on you.
So I didn't have the name, the Indigenous and World Music Hall of Fame. I didn't have that name at 14 years old, but
Okay.
I knew I wanted to create something that was extraordinary. And I knew, like you said, it's like putting a band together. It's
Yeah.
like writing a song. I'm a lyricist and I can come up with a melody, but the song doesn't take life until I have my writing partners,
Right.
my
Exactly.
bandmates,
Collaborate.
we collaborate and
Yes.
create together, and now it becomes ours.
I love
So
that.
at 14, I knew that I wanted to create this world. I didn't know how, and I didn't grow up
Oh,
working in as a tech, you
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I grew up around Silicon Valley, so I knew that there were people that could do this. So
Yeah.
start talking to different people. And now the metaverse is where it all clicked. And this was a little over 2, 3 years ago. This is where we can create this world. Well, all artists are welcome.
Yeah.
First,
Across.
we have to build the infrastructure, and the metaverse is a place where our avatars live. So it's for lack of a better description, but maybe it might simplify it for those that don't know. And I think a lot of people in my age group are completely in the dark about what is the metaverse. But
Yeah.
it's like the animated version or the cartoon-like version of you
Yeah.
in
Opposite.
this other world, right? And it's just this beautiful place for expression and music and coming together
Yeah. 100%.
with hopefully none of the biases, none of the prejudices.
Fingers crossed. That would be awesome, wouldn't it?
And then to invite people from all over the world into this space, I think we're on the right track. We're, again, it's a nonprofit. But we want to be revenue positive so it can be sustainable so that it can live in the future for our young people.
Yes.
They come and chat with us, with our avatars, learn our stories, but then also create their own.
Yeah.
And so our purpose is to raise the money that we need right now. We're already partnered with, we just signed our agreement with conectado.com, which they
Yay.
already have built
Awesome. Yeah.
this
Well,
metaverse. And
yeah.
now we're going to populate it with artists and creatives from everywhere, every age group, every ethnicity, everything. It's that is what I dreamt of when I was 14 years
Oh,
old.
that's lovely. And it's
And
also
now
about the digital personality, isn't it? It's like you can buy digital clothes, digital fashion, digital looks, and you can
I,
buy as well add-ons and whatever you want,
I,
right? Be a whole.
correct. And I think it's important to understand that, you know, some people say, oh, well, it's an escape and it's not the real world. But I used to escape with the books.
Liberty is escape. That's what it is, right?
Right. I mean, my escapism was reading all those books and being in that world in my imagination. I
Yeah,
was Alice in Wonderland when I was in second grade.
in
I
Oxford. That's what it was made.
did,
Carol made,
right?
right?
We had those adventures because we were able to use our imagination. So what's the difference between escaping into our books
Or I
or
mean,
escaping
or
into the metaverse?
right. I love that. And well done. If anyone can connect with you, Carmen, or find out more about your work, your projects, or donate, how would they do that?
Please go to Divina World Foundation. That's DIVINA worldfoundation.org. And you can connect with me there. If you want to be a sponsor, if you want to donate, if you have ideas, we have an incredible advisory council that we're building that we can use support from other people around the world. I want to have a separate conversation with you just As I'm brainstorming here. But I think that, yeah, that's the best place to connect with me for the Divina World Foundation website. And I'd love to have a conversation with you all as well.
Thank you. I'll leave a link in the description below. And please go and support listeners. Please make sure this work happens. If you want to find out more about the metaverse, please do that. And I just want to say thank you, Carmen, for everything you shared with us, for doing all the great work you're doing and representing the Indigenous community, because that's the original Americans, North and
First Peoples
Central America.
everywhere, everywhere.
Really, really.
First Peoples everywhere, and those stories are important. Your story is important. Our viewer stories are important. All of our stories are important. And I think
Yes.
if we work together, our voices will be heard.
And I really respect that. Thank you ever so much. And we'll
Thank
speak.
you so much.
And you, likewise. Bye.
Bye.